Babe, I need you to stay away from the house tonight. My ex is coming over. Please don't ask questions. I'll explain tomorrow. I love you. I'm Bansiman Jackal, and those 23 words destroyed my entire world. I sat in my car outside Henderson and Associates accounting, engine running, anniversary flowers wilting in the passenger seat. 5 years of marriage. 5 years of what I thought was truth. My phone screen blurred as I read the message again, trying to make the letters rearrange into something that made sense. Brenda had never mentioned an ex, not once. In all our late-night conversations, all our dreams about the future, all our whispered secrets, she'd painted her past as blank as fresh snow. "You're my first real love," she'd told me on our wedding night. I'd believed her because my father taught me that when you don't trust people, you become him. And I swore I'd never become him. I texted back with shaking fingers. "Okay, I trust you. But are you safe?" The message showed delivered, then read, but no reply came. I watched those 3 dots appear and disappear 4 times before they vanished completely. That's when I knew something was catastrophically wrong. Please, before I continue, kindly like, share, and subscribe for more interesting stories. I drove to the Sunset Motel on Highway 47, the kind of place where the neon sign flickers and nobody asks questions. Room 12 smelled like cigarettes and broken promises. I sat on the edge of a bed that sagged in the middle, staring at my phone like it might suddenly explain why my wife needed me gone. My mother used to say I was too trusting. "Just like your father was," she'd whisper, right before the bitterness crept into her voice. "Look where that got him." Dad trusted the wrong business partner and lost everything. I was 7 when he walked out, too ashamed to face us. I found him 12 years later, living in a place not much better than this motel room. I'd built my entire adult life around being different, reliable, present, the kind of man who doesn't run when things get hard. Brenda knew this about me. She knew I'd stayed in Anderson Creek my whole life because I refused to abandon the people I loved. She knew I counted pennies and double-checked locks because I never wanted anyone to accuse me of carelessness. So why was I here? Why was I the one exiled from my own home? 3 hours crawled by. No response, no explanation, nothing. At 11:47 p.m., my phone lit up with a notification. Brenda had posted on social media a photo of herself smiling at Marcello's, an upscale Italian restaurant 45 minutes from our house. The location tag glowed like an accusation. She'd lied about where she was. If her ex was at our house, why was she at a restaurant across town? I couldn't sleep. The motel room felt like it was shrinking. At 2:34 a.m., I did something I'd promised myself I'd never do. I opened our home security app. We'd installed cameras 3 months ago after the Hendersons got robbed. Brenda had fought me on it for weeks, claiming it felt invasive, like we were spying on ourselves. I'd promised I'd only check if there was an emergency. I'd kept that promise for 93 days, until tonight. I scrolled back to 7 p.m. and pressed play. For 32 minutes, nothing happened. Our front porch stood empty under the yellow glow of the lamp Brenda's mother had given us as a wedding gift. Then, at 7:32 p.m., everything changed. A black Mercedes S-Class pulled into our driveway. The kind of car that costs more than I make in 2 years. The kind of car that whispers wealth so old it doesn't need to shout. A man stepped out wearing a suit that probably cost more than our mortgage payment. Tall, broad-shouldered, the kind of handsome that makes other men feel inadequate just by existing. But what shattered me wasn't how he looked. It was how Brenda ran to him. Not walked. Ran. The door flew open before he even reached the porch, and she sprinted out like she'd been holding her breath all day, waiting for this moment. She jumped into his arms, and he caught her like they'd rehearsed this 1,000 times. They held each other for 47 seconds. I counted every single one because counting is what I do when the world stops making sense. When they finally pulled apart, the man reached into his jacket and pulled out a manila envelope. Brenda opened it right there in the driveway, her hands trembling under the porch light. She read whatever was inside, and her hand flew to her mouth. She was crying, but she was smiling. The kind of smile I used to think she reserved only for me. The man wiped her tears with his thumb, gentle and familiar, then kissed her forehead. They walked into my house together, his hand on the small of her back in a way that spoke of ownership, of history, of things I would never understand. I paused the video and zoomed in on his face. My stomach dropped into a dark, cold place. I knew this face. Everyone in Anderson Creek knew this face. Everyone in the entire state knew this face. Darius Wellington, tech billionaire, philanthropist, the man whose name was on the new children's hospital downtown, on the scholarship fund at the university, on buildings I passed every day. Forbes estimated his net worth at $3.7 billion. I'd read an article about him just last month in the waiting room at the dentist. Brenda had dated a billionaire, and she'd never mentioned it. Not once in 5 years of marriage, not during our late-night talks about past relationships, not when I'd nervously confessed about my awkward high school girlfriend, not ever. My hands shook as I scrolled backward through the security footage. Days became weeks, became months, and there it was, hidden in plain sight like a wound I'd been too blind to see. Every third Thursday, for 6 months. Darius Wellington had been coming to my house while I was at my late evening client meetings with Henderson and Associates, always arriving at 7:30 p.m., always leaving at exactly 9 p.m., 90 minutes, 26 visits. Half a year of Thursdays I'd spent balancing spreadsheets while my wife entertained a billionaire in our living room. I did what accountants do best. I followed the money. Our joint account loaded on my phone screen. I scrolled back through 6 months of transactions, looking for anything unusual. There, buried among grocery purchases and utility bills, I found it. A recurring deposit of $15,000 on the 15th of every month. The source, DW Enterprises. $15,000 every month for 6 months. $90,000 I'd never questioned because Brenda handled most of our finances. She'd told me she got a raise at the hospital where she worked as a surgical coordinator. They finally recognized my value, she'd said, opening a bottle of wine to celebrate. I'd been so proud of her, but Brenda made $48,000 a year. A raise doesn't double your income. My father used to say that numbers tell the truth when people won't. He was right about that, at least. Numbers were the only thing he hadn't lied about before he left. I remembered Brenda's personal account, the one she'd opened just for emergencies and thought I didn't know about. I'd found the statements once while looking for our tax documents. I'd felt guilty for seeing them, like I'd violated her privacy. I never looked again, until now. I used the password I'd accidentally memorized from watching her type it. My birthday. She'd made her secret account password my birthday, and somehow that made everything worse. The balance loaded, $847,291.33. I actually laughed. A horrible, broken sound that echoed off the motel room walls. $847,000. My wife had nearly $1 million in a secret account, while I'd been clipping coupons and arguing with her about whether we could afford to replace our dying washing machine. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part came when I logged into our mortgage account. I'd checked it just last week because I like staying on top of our payments. We owed $182,000, 5 more years of payments. I'd already calculated that if I took on 2 more clients, we could pay it off in 4 years instead, except the balance now showed 0, paid in full, 3 months ago. We're still building equity, Brenda had told me last week when I suggested we increase our monthly payment. Let's not rush it. I'd believed her because I'd built my entire life around believing the people I loved. My laptop sat in my car. I'd brought it planning to work on client files at the motel. Instead, I used it to shatter what remained of my world. I knew Brenda's laptop password. She knew mine. We'd always had that kind of trust, the kind that made our friends jealous. No secrets, she'd once told her sister while I pretended not to listen. That's why it works. Her cloud drive loaded, folders labeled by year. I clicked on one marked, personal, private. My cursor hovered over it. This was the moment. I could close the laptop, drive home, demand answers face to face. I could preserve whatever dignity remained. But dignity is a luxury afforded to men who haven't watched their wives run into another man's arms. I clicked. Legal documents filled the screen. Contracts, agreements, NDAs with more pages than our mortgage paperwork. My eyes caught on certain phrases. The Wellington Trust, Parental Rights Agreement, monthly disbursement schedule, and then, buried in paragraph 14 of a contract dated 8 years ago, I found it. Vivian Jackal Wellington, Dobe, August 14th, 2019. August 2019. My mind raced backward through our timeline. We got married June 8th, 2019. I remembered because we'd chosen early June for the weather, and it had rained anyway. Brenda had laughed, saying rain on your wedding day meant good luck. 3 months later, in November 2019, she told me she'd had a miscarriage. I'd held her while she sobbed for weeks. She'd said she was 3 months pregnant, that she'd been waiting to tell me until she was sure. She'd said the baby just stopped growing, that these things happen, that maybe it wasn't meant to be. I'd grieved with her. I'd taken time off work to stay home. I'd held her hair back when she couldn't stop crying long enough to eat. But if this document was real, if this date was accurate, she hadn't lost a baby in November. She'd given birth to one in August. A little girl, a child who would be 5 years old now. I found the photo folder at 4:17 a.m. By then, I'd stopped crying. I'd moved past shock into that strange, numb place where nothing feels real anymore. The folder was labeled V and buried inside 3 other folders like a Russian nesting doll of deception. I clicked it open, and my screen filled with a child's face. She had Brenda's eyes, that distinctive hazel green that changes color in different light. But she had someone else's smile, wide and confident, and already certain the world would give her whatever she wanted. Darius Wellington's smile. There were hundreds of photos, thousands maybe. First birthday party with a cake shaped like a unicorn. First day of preschool with a backpack bigger than her tiny body. Halloween costumes, Christmas mornings, a trip to Disney World, swimming lessons, dance recitals, every milestone I'd imagined we'd share someday with our children, except they'd already happened. With a child I didn't know existed, a child Brenda had told me died. One photo made me close the laptop. Vivian, maybe 4 years old, holding a painting she'd made. Brenda knelt beside her, their faces pressed together, both grinning at the camera. In the background, I could see our living room, our couch, the lamp my mother had given us. This photo was taken in my house. How many Thursdays had I come home to find Brenda cooking dinner, asking about my day, kissing me hello, never mentioning that hours earlier she'd been playing mother to a child she'd erased from her official life. My phone buzzed. 6:47 a.m., Brenda calling. I let it ring. It buzzed again and again. By the 34th call, the sun was rising, and I finally answered. "Where are you?" Her voice shattered through the speaker, shrill with panic. "You were supposed to come back. I said 1 night. Bansiman, answer me." My voice came out eerily calm. Accountant voice. The voice I used when telling clients their returns were being audited. "I saw the security footage, Brenda. I saw him. I saw the money. I saw Vivian." Silence. Complete, absolute silence. I could hear her breathing, fast and shallow, like she'd just run a mile. Then, "Bansiman, please let me explain." I hung up. The phone immediately buzzed with a text. "If you come home right now, I'll tell you everything. The real everything. You deserve to know what I sacrificed for us. Please, 1 hour, then you can decide if you want to stay or go." What she sacrificed for us. The words burned. I'd sacrificed too. I'd sacrificed job opportunities in bigger cities because Brenda wanted to stay close to Anderson Creek. I'd sacrificed dreams of traveling because she said she was anxious about flying. I'd sacrificed knowing the truth because she'd decided I couldn't handle it, but I texted back anyway. Riverside Park, 1 hour, come alone. I don't know why I agreed. Maybe because despite everything, despite the lies stacked so high I couldn't see over them anymore, some pathetic part of me still hoped there was an explanation that would make this okay. There wasn't. Brenda arrived at Riverside Park looking destroyed. No makeup. Hair unwashed and pulled back in a messy knot, wearing the old college sweatshirt she only wore when she was sick. She'd been crying so hard her eyes were nearly swollen shut. She sat on the bench beside me but didn't touch me. Smart. If she'd touched me, I might have shattered completely. 8 years ago, I was engaged to Darius, she began, her voice hollow. I was 23, pregnant, stupid enough to think love mattered more than money. She laughed bitterly. His father gave me an ultimatum: marry Darius and give up the baby to be raised by nannies, never acknowledged as mine. Or keep the baby, but sign away all public parental rights, take monthly payments, and disappear from Darius's public life. If I refused both options, he'd destroy my parents' business and make sure I never saw a penny of support. I remembered her parents. They'd died before I met Brenda, but I'd seen photos, kind faces. She talked about them sometimes late at night. They'd just been diagnosed, she continued. Both of them. Stage 3 cancer. The medical bills were crushing them. They were going to lose their house. I looked at that contract, $15,000 a month for life, full medical coverage for my parents, education trust for Vivian, and I signed it. Because of that blood money, my parents lived 3 more years. Comfortable years. Pain-managed years. She turned to look at me finally, her face wet with tears. I met you 2 years after they died, at that grief support group. You were so kind, Bansiman. So real. You didn't care about money or status or any of the things Darius's world valued. You cared about showing up, about being present. You were everything he wasn't. So you lied to me, I said flatly. I fell in love with you, she said. Really, truly in love, and I convinced myself I'd tell you once we were more stable. Once you got your promotion. Once we bought the house. Once, 5 years of once. I'm a coward. Every Thursday, she whispered, Darius brings Vivian to our house, never to his mansion, too many staff, too much risk. She thinks I'm Aunt Brenda. That's what they told her. We have 90 minutes, we read stories, we bake cookies, we play pretend, and then at 7:31, I watch them drive away and I cry in our driveway until I can't breathe. Then I wash my face and become your wife again by 8. I thought about all those Thursdays, how Brenda always seemed tired on Thursday nights, how she'd started seeing a therapist 6 months ago, paying cash, claiming her insurance wouldn't cover it, how she'd sometimes wake up crying from nightmares she refused to explain. Darius's father died last year, she continued. Everything changed. Darius showed up last night with proof. Death certificates, new contracts voiding all the old NDAs. He said I'm free, that we can tell the world, that Vivian can know I'm her mother, that we can get married and be a real family. So that's what you want, I said. It wasn't a question. No! She grabbed my arm. I pulled away. I told him no. I told him I love you. I told him I was going to confess everything to you tomorrow. I'd planned an elaborate dinner. Hired a therapist to be there, prepared a photo album. I was going to ask you to forgive me and help me fight for custody and be the father Vivian needs even though you're not her biological father. But he showed up a day early, I said, understanding. His lawyers found a loophole. I could get full custody immediately if I moved fast. He needed me to sign papers that night. I panicked. I sent you away planning to process everything and tell you the next day with proper support and preparation. Instead, I lost you forever. I stood up. You're telling me you were going to choose me, but only after 5 years of lies? Only after the money got complicated? Only after Darius's father died and suddenly honesty became convenient? She couldn't answer. She just cried harder. I loved you, I said. Past tense. She heard it. I loved you more than I've ever loved anyone. I would have understood about Vivian. I would have helped you fight for her. I would have been her father in every way that mattered. But you didn't trust me with the truth. You thought I was too weak or too stupid or too poor to handle your real life. That's not... Save it. I started walking toward my car. My lawyer will contact you about the divorce. 2 weeks later, I sat in Margaret Chen's office. No, not Chen. I sat in Margaret Okonkwo's office looking at divorce papers that would end my marriage. You're entitled to half of everything acquired during the marriage, she said, adjusting her glasses. Based on these bank statements, that's over $400,000. I shook my head. I don't want it. She can keep the house, the money, all of it. I just want out. Margaret frowned. Mr. Jackal, I understand you're hurt, but you shouldn't make financial decisions based on emotion. This money isn't mine, I interrupted. It never was. It's blood money from a billionaire's guilt and a contract signed in desperation. I won't touch it. She studied me for a long moment. You're a rare man, Mr. Jackal. I'm a stupid man, I corrected. A rare, stupid man who believed in honesty. As I signed the papers, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. A video message loaded automatically. I pressed play without thinking. A little girl's face filled my screen. Hazel green eyes. Wide, confident smile. "Hi, I'm Vivienne. Aunt Brenda says you're her friend. She's been really sad lately. Like, really, really sad. She cries all the time now. Can you make her smile again? She smiles pretty when she's happy." The video ended. I sat staring at the blank screen. This child had no idea her entire existence had detonated my life. She was innocent in all of this. I deleted the video and finished signing the papers. 6 months later, I stood in my new apartment in Greenville, 3 states away. New job, new city, new life. The kind of clean break my father had made, except I'd left forwarding addresses and paid all my debts. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Mr. Jackal?" A woman's voice, professional. "This is Principal Morrison from Westbrook Elementary. I'm calling because Vivian Wellington is having a difficult day. She's asking for her father, but Mr. Wellington is out of the country. She keeps crying for the nice man from the video and won't tell us who that is. We found this number in her mother's emergency contacts labeled B. I know this is unusual, but..." I hung up. Then I blocked the number. That evening, I got a voicemail from Brenda. I could hear the desperation in her voice even through the tinny speaker. "Bansiman, please. Vivian saw the video I sent you. She's asking about you. She wants to meet you. I know I don't deserve to ask, but she's just a little girl who's confused about why Aunt Brenda is so sad. Please, just one meeting, then you never have to see us again." I deleted the voicemail without finishing it. My coworker knocked on my apartment door that night, holding a 6-pack of beer. "You look like you could use a friend," she said. Her name was Amara. She was a senior analyst. She'd made me laugh twice this week, which was twice more than I'd laughed in 6 months. "I could," I admitted, taking a beer. We talked until 2 a.m. about everything except my past. It felt like breathing after being underwater for too long. The next morning, I changed my phone number. I deleted all my social media. I became the kind of ghost my father had been, except I did it with intention, with clean cuts, with no debris left behind. Brenda sent one final email to my work address. I don't know how she found it. The subject line read, "I understand." I archived it without reading it. Some doors, once you walk through them, lock behind you. You can't go back even if you wanted to, even if a little girl with hazel green eyes asks you to, even if part of you wonders what kind of father you might have been. I never returned to Anderson Creek. I never answered another call from unknown numbers. I never let myself wonder if Vivian still asked about the nice man from the video. I built a new life from scratch, the way you're supposed to after a fire burns everything down. Clean foundation, strong walls, no secret rooms where lies can hide. And on Thursdays, when I found myself remembering, I forced myself to think about Amara's laugh instead, about the future instead of the past, about the man I was becoming instead of the man who'd been too trusting to see the truth. My father had run from shame. I ran from pain. Maybe we weren't so different after all, but at least I knew exactly what I was running from. At least I'd learned that some people will choose comfort over truth every single time, and the only way to protect yourself from that is to become the kind of person who values honesty more than love, even if it means walking away from both.